Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy OmegaXVI, and this week has been a big week for Destiny. The Duality dungeon release, Season 17 dropped, Solar 3.0. But today, I'm going to be talking about the Duality dungeon. I'm just going to give you my thoughts on each thing and basically the overall feel of what I thought. Generally, I thought the dungeon was great. There were just a few nitpicky things I didn't like the physics deaths and the parkour sections. But in general, I really liked it. It's kind of like a mix between what I thought dungeons were supposed to be, like mini raid layers. Grasp of Avarice didn't really feel that way, and the other ones were This one I think had a good mix of difficulty and decent mechanics. Lore-wise, I thought it was great. The vibe of the area was awesome. But let me just get into each phase while I'm working on it, so I'll see you in a second. Peace. So I'm going to start with what the mechanics of the encounter are and then get on my take for it. You start in the opening room with 2 bells on each side. Then you have 4 standards: Sun, Chalice, Axes, and Ward Beasts. You go into the Nightmare World by shooting the bell. You kill the 2 standard bearers that are at either end. Pick up the 2 standards, kill the 2 bell bearers, get back within the bell's radius, shoot it, teleport back to the main world, and then you put the standards in, kill everything in those rooms, go into those rooms, shoot the bell to teleport one more time, work your way through all these shades of Galaran, go back to mid, kill the 2 bell bearers, start DPS phase on Galaran. So what I really thought of the encounter was, when initially the act of getting the standards was really simple, and putting them there, figuring out that you have to shoot the thing for the bell inside, bit more complicated for me and my team, but overall the encounter had pretty manageable enemy density, even solo, which I can't really say for the other encounters. I liked how they made you go through the shades of Galaran to initiate DPS. I thought it was really creative. I liked how they used Galaran from a lore perspective. We kind of got more insight into how everything kind of worked with Galaran, and since his head is literally the seasonal vendor, I thought it was really cool that they incorporated that. The only thing I really did not like was that the DPS phase was really tricky. Not because it was actually difficult, it's because Galaran would run to a corner as soon as you initiated the DPS, which would really cut into your time. You really are limited by, 40 seconds before Nightmare collapses, so you have up until 5 seconds to get back to the bell. It just was really annoying to see him just run into a corner. So he starts in mid, immediately bolts to a corner. But overall, I give the encounter an 8 out of 10. I only subtracted 2 because the boss's AI was annoying. But other than that, top-notch first encounter. So I'm going to go over the mechanics again for second encounter. Basically, you'd have to pick up 2 standards in the Nightmare World. The 2 symbols show up in the front. There's a Centurion in the middle and a bunch of ads. And some bell bearers. There are 2 bells, one on opposite side of each other, one where you spawn and one where you across from where you spawn. And then basically you would have to go into the world by looking at where the symbols are on the back of these little ramparts that are kind of in the corners. Go up there, kill all the ads in the room, kill the Centurion at the top, the Colossus at the top. It spawns a Centurion, you kill it, pick up the standard, bolt back to spawn, place them, and then that's when you initiate DPS. So I thought this encounter was nothing special. It was just ad clear, picking up a symbol, and then killing a boss. And you did it 3 times. So it was repetitive. There was a lot of ads, and I had a pretty hard time solo doing it. So I thought that the enemy density on top of it's just very boring. I just gave it a 5 out of 10. It really wasn't anything special. Even compared to the first encounter, it just kind of fell short. But hearing Callus like scream at the top of his lungs, "Don't do that," every time, it was reward enough. That's why it isn't a little bit lower, just because I thought it was funny. So this last encounter has a few moving parts. There's 4 platforms in the room and 3 different bells. One where you start, and then one on the left, one on the right. There are 4 platforms, and the bottom 2 are Chalice on the right side and Dogs on the left. Then you have Sun at the top and Axes at the top for left for Suns, right for Axes. So you had to see which 2 symbols. There's 2 symbols per side, and they glow. You go onto the platform, you shoot the bell, you teleport into the nightmare world, you kill the standard bearers, pick them up, kill the bell bearers, go back, place the 2, do that twice, then you get into priming the Bell of Conquest, which is teleporting you to the damage phase. You shoot it, you're all in position, one in mid, one on right, one on left. This is important because 6 bell bearers spawn, you have to kill all 6 of them and then see which bell Keitel is going to go to. She starts walking towards her one, and you can stun her as soon as she's close enough to the bell, which is like slightly outside of the bell. It stuns her. You have 10 seconds to do double DPS. Without it, you only deal 10% of your damage. You have 3 chances. If she gets to the bell before you immediately exit damage phase and you teleport back to the main world. You got to restart. So initially when we were doing this, I thought the mechanics weren't too bad. We kept wiping, trying to figure out damage phase, and then I said, hey, let's try with the bells, because I kept seeing her walk up to the bells. And then my team was like, no, let's check that. I'm like, no, let's try one time. And then thank God we didn't. And we ended up doing it. I thought the overall encounter was fine. The only problem I had with it was the ad density. And that's pretty much it, because everything else was pretty simple. We almost one-phased the boss. We got her down to a sliver of health. And even when we were getting her back, you can still damage her all the way up because you can bait her stomps. But the DPS buff that you get when you do the thing, it's really important. But I ended up giving it a 7 out of 10. I just didn't really like how you could pretty much wipe in the... You can wipe anywhere. It's like... The other ones were very manageable on how you can wipe. This one took a lot more like coordination, because if you lost a standard, you had to go back in. If one person died, you kind of had to get the res. If someone wasn't doing ad clear, you would have to do ad clear on top of what you're doing, so you're time limited. But overall, I thought it was a great encounter, and it worked fine for the final piece of the puzzle. Now that I talked about all the counters, I'm going to talk about the dungeon as a whole. It really did feel like the middle content, because we only have GMs and then legend stuff. So this kind of felt in the middle, because it was just difficult enough where like you could say it was difficult, and you could do some parts really easily and some parts were really hard. My only major gripe was the stuff I said about the AI and some of the mechanics, but the worst, besides some of the loot, was the physics-based deaths, because they're completely avoidable. Bungie's made this game for 5 years. They know we hate getting killed by physics stuff. You should not be shooting us down a long hallway to kill us. Basically, that's a flawless killer. And the respawn timers, if your teammate dies, it throws them in a really bad spot. And like, you're probably not going to be able to get them depending on how fast you're running through this dungeon, because it's not really that long to get to the next section. So they'll just be watching you. But aside from that, the environment gave a 7 out of 10. It just is what it is. And then for the actual mechanics, I thought the stands were a 10 out of 10. Very easy to find, get, and they were just really nostalgic for me from, you know, doing the Leviathan raid back in the early days of D2. The teleporters were good, except you had to stand in the circle to teleport back. Otherwise, it would kill you. Bit inconvenient, but not really that difficult. And the loot is kind of where there's this biggest discrepancy in this dungeon, because the weapons are 10 out of 10. Even if you don't like LMGs, it's still a good LMG. Slow firing, so you can really hit those shots. The Epicurean nuts fusion rifle, little sad that it's void, but I can live with that. The Storm Chaser is a very interesting archetype of this weapon. Kind of blew me away. I only got auto-loading holster and Vorpal, so once I get a better roll, maybe I'll see how it is. It could be the new meta compared to Reed's Regret. But the Storm Chaser, the Lingering Dread, and the Unforgiven, all very unique weapons, because having a stasis pulse rifle that can roll with adaptive munitions, insane for PvE. Lingering Dread, a stasis grenade launcher. Finally, we have another primary grenade launcher, so we don't have to eat up that second slot with a plethora of new weapons that they added that were actually really great in the actual season. And the Unforgiven is a good alternate void weapon. Aside from the aesthetics, great. Where the aesthetics fall is the armor. Very basic, plain D1 armor. Really was unimpressed. That's just because I've been playing since D1, and me just seeing this plain Hake armor in Callus's mind, really underwhelming. But overall, I think that the dungeon was a good mix between difficulty and is a really good middle content for everyone to play, because we've been asking for this kind of stuff. I know there are complaints about ad density, or it's too long, or some of the mechanics suck. No. Let's be real here. Bungie did a good job with the dungeon. They did something new and inventive. They dealt with the nightmares really good. They, from a lore perspective, brought a lot. The exotic, yeah, a bit underwhelming. It's a void sword. But who knows, right? They made this dungeon relatively manageable for solo players. I've seen a lot of people do it. I'm going to do another attempt at some point and probably post a video about that. But overall, I think a solid 7 out of 10. Was it perfect? No. But it's good enough that, you know, I won't have a problem running it 2 to 3 times a week on my characters. Unlike Grasp, I'll run it once and then farm it. But that's it. I'm really pleased with what Bungie's done this season. It's only been the first week. But yeah, if you guys want to see a Duality dungeon guide, leave a like, comment, and I'll do my best to get one out as soon as possible. Peace.